So now I want to draw a box. You know, I can't draw, and I know you guys are all going to tell me you can't draw either. But I can turn. So I can go to the lathe and I can make a shape that I want to make. So in this video, I'd like to share drawing hacks you can use to design, draw, and dimension turned wooden boxes using your turning skills. So here's my basic process. I can, in the first place, turn a block of wood, just a blank on the outside, just try out the shape of a box that I want, and when I get one that I like. And I can saw my model in half and trace around it to make a drawing of the box. Use the drawing and a story stick that I make from the drawing to make the box. And then at the end of the process, I don't want to saw my box in half to see how it came out, but I can make a shadow drawing and get a pretty accurate picture of what I actually made compared to where I started out. So why do I make drawings? Why don't I just go ahead and make the damn box? Well, you turn boxes inside out. You make the inside, and usually actually finish the inside, make sure the fit is right, and make it all fit together before you touch the outside. So by the time you come to make the outside, you've invested considerable time and wood, and you might find you're not left with enough wood from what you've done on the inside to make the outside that you want. The drawing's going to tell me where do I part the lid from the box blank and from any rings that I'm including. It's going to tell me how deep to hollow out the lid. It's going to let me investigate shapes for the outside of the box and the consequences of those on the inside of the box. I can turn the drawing upside down and look at the shape both ways around and see how the different kinds of curves compare. And where's the high point of the curve so I can turn downhill from them. And if I ever think I want to make the box again, I've got dimensions that I can use to follow. I don't have to go and do any guessing. It's all right in the drawings in my sketchbook. Okay, so I saw a picture of a box kind of like this that I wanted to make. And I had not made one like that before, so I wasn't sure what it was like inside. And you know, most of the work is the inside. The outside is the last thing you do, and it's the quickest. So I made a blank instead. This is just a block of wood. Wood that I wasn't going to turn for anything else because it had a big flaw in it. And then I sawed it in half. I found the center using a center finder. Don't bandsaw it this way, you'll catch the blade. Stand it up, use the fence, bandsaw it straight. Sawed it in half. And now I can, well, first of all, this is a template that stands in for a 3x4 block of wood, and I'm going to use this better pen. I'm going to draw that way, that way, that way, and that way. And I'm going to mark the center so that I can draw a center line. I really want this bottom edge to show up, so let's do it. Okay, so then I went and turned a block of wood and sawed it in half. And you can see that this is the profile. This is just a shape I like. So now I don't know anything about what's going on inside this block of wood, but I can position it here now on my drawing. And it's a bit wider than that, but that doesn't matter either because I could just go to this is where my edge is going to be. And I'm going to have tenons both ends. And now I can draw around the model that I turned just because it looked good to me. I can turn a lot better than I can draw, but then I can use my turning to generate a drawing. So that's the first step. And if I had the block of wood I wanted to use, I would just put it down on my drawing pad and draw around that. In that case, I would eyeball a center line and draw that. I like to use a stick as a straight edge. And then I have to be mindful of the need for tenons. So I'm going to draw tenons there and a tenon there. Then first of all, I'm going to draw the top of the block within that rectangle, like that. Around the bead, around the top. This is the box that I turned. And around there, that's the lid. And then I'm going to draw the bottom of the box. That's there. And around there, there's a little foot. And that's the outside of the bottom. And then inside, there'll be a tenon that fits inside the lid. So now, here's my lid. Here's the belly of the box. Here's the part. And here's the foot. And now I'm going to eyeball roughly 1/4 of an inch for the wall thickness out here. And draw that line there. That's the inside of the lid there, and the outside of the tenon here. So here's the inside of the lid if it was flat. And here's the inside of the lid with a curve that's compatible with the box. And then down here, I need the bottom of the box has a similar thickness of under 1/4, maybe 3/16 of a tenon to there. And then the inside of the box goes from here to maybe here. And so I can use my outside of the box template to draw a plausible curve for the inside of the box. Now I know everything I need to know to make this box. Now for this video, I'm going to color this in with a brush just so I can, this is just a Tombow brush pen and water paints, just so I can be sure what my cross section is and what I'm looking at, and so that you can see what I'm looking at as well. So there's the lid, and here's the box body. I'm not quite sure what the foot's going to look like down there, but I can easily work that out at the end of the turning process. Now, as I look at my drawing, I can see that I want the high point of the lid curve to be up there. That would be there. And similarly, the body curve, and I'm liking that. Okay, story stick. I've made myself a drawing from my turned blank, and it's looking pretty good, and I can see where my key dimensions are. I'm going to make a story stick. It's going to be convenient at the lathe. It's going to give me just the dimensions I need. I can label it and stash it away so I can make the same box again later from it. And at the end of the process, I can get a photograph of the story stick and the half model and whatever box I make out of it. So that'll be fun to have. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure my story stick and the wood between the tenons is clearly marked. And I want that line really clear across there, and I'm not interested in that bit of wood. Second thing I need to know is where's the part between the lid and the body? And that is there, part. And the third thing I need to know is how deep am I going to hollow the lid? And that is there. So this is the lid in. And this is the part, lid. And then on the box body, here's the part. Here's where the flange ends, and then the curve comes down to here, and then here's the bead. And now here is the other point I need, which is the knee of that curve, because I'm going to turn from that point down to there, and that point down to there. Similarly with the lid, I'm going to turn from, well, it happens to be the same point as here, so I'm going to put an arrow on it. When I make the lid, and I'm on the outside here from the blank, I'm going to turn from, I'm really going to turn from about the center of that curve. I probably want to have this curve come in a little more, so I'll just mark that there. And then I can record that down here on the foot of my story stick, that this distance here, this is the part for the foot. But I'm mostly going to turn from these thicknesses here rather than these dimensions here. Anyway, now I can go and make the box. And as you can draw around the block of wood to see what you've got to work with and make your drawing for your turning, you can also use the template to find the block of wood within what you have. This is a block of ash from some other project. It's a piece of a beam or something. It's wider than it is, wider this way than it is this way. And I wanted to make a 3x6 blank out of it, but I have a 3x6 template, and you can see I've worked on this before. I can use my template to find the straight grain section that I want to have out of this ash block, because straight grain works best for these kinds of things where you want to see the grain flow around the piece of wood and fool people maybe as to how it was made. I can draw around this and then bandsaw the blank of wood that I want. I can even fiddle further with the grain of the wood in this plane if I want to. By working here and here, I'll get a smaller blank, but I can also get it straighten the grain in this plane as well. Drawing the ends that I can saw too, because I really like to work with a blank that's basically square for these kinds of projects. And now between this sawing this face and then sawing this face, I'm going to have a pretty good blank of ash wood out of something that would otherwise be not what I want for the boxes I make. Now, the technique of actually doing the turning is well documented elsewhere on my video channel, and especially on the Lancaster Woodturners Club channel. Once I've made the box, and I like what I've got, I might want to draw it again and make a record. I'm going to see if I can get a good enough shadow here. I really can't. I need a better light than this. Okay, so here's the baffle I'm going to use to get a point source of light. It's the same size as my multi-LED work light, and I'm just going to, with a 1/2-inch hole, and I'm just going to tape it over the light. Now I can directly measure the thickness of the lid piece, and it's very close on, finishes out at 1/7/8 of an inch. So I can pick that up here on my ruler, and it's coming into here, and I'm going to have a little more clearance. I'm going to give it 1 inch there. And draw that horizontal line. That's the lid piece there. The body piece similarly measures from top of the tenon to the bottom of the finished base is 2 inches. And that's from the tenon there, and I'm going to also have some clearance, so that's to about there. And I can draw that line. What's left in here is the blank originally might have been smaller. I need to do 3 and 4 here, and I might have had a couple of pairings away to get to where it ended up. And also there's a part in there. So now I can position, you can see the shadow. I hope you can see the shadow in the video, and I'm going to draw around the lid. I'm going to note the high point of the curve is there, and the bead is there, and this is the line. I'm going to do the very same thing with the base. I'm going to position it there, and just rock it a little bit so that it fits well within the shadow here. All right, now there's my tenon, there's my shoulder, and there's my outside surface down to a bead here. Okay, that looks about right. And now I can detail the box as before, except this time you can take dimensions from the actual box with dial caliper and 6-inch rule. Now this lid, the blank could come over that far, but it actually has a wee little curve in there, which I can draw using my French curve, roughly like that. And this bead actually goes down here like this. And my French curve helped me draw what the top drum is going to look like as well. Now on the bottom, this line here is this line here, and it's about that thick, I can see as I look at it. And yes, the inside bowl goes down to about there, and the outside curve I can actually now improve my own drawing using the French curve. There's the top of the curve. Now I want to come down to here, and there's the foot. And I can confirm that, as I knew before, that's about, oh, that's a ½ inch, 3/8 to ½ an inch into there. So this line here I'd like to have more emphasis on. That's the inside of the box. And then it hollows down to here. And I can draw that curve using the French curve if I want to. Of course, you would do this in lieu of sawing a piece you'd made in half, or a piece you'd bought in half that you wanted to copy, or a piece you'd made and forgotten about, or whatever. You don't want to saw the thing in half to get a nice drawing. You can get a nice drawing using a French curve and the shadow. And now I can paint that in as I did before, and you'll see what it looks like. So there you go. Okay, to sum it all up, turning practice blanks and sawing them up for drawing builds your turning skills, it rehearses your project, and it prepares you to get a great result from your best wood.